For nearly 2 millennia, the figure of Mary Magdalene has been shrouded in misconception, reduced to a narrative of repentance and redemption, crafted not by historical accuracy, but by institutional necessity. Yet, buried beneath layers of dogma and deliberate omission lies a truth so profound that it challenges the very foundations of one of the world's most powerful institutions. This is the story of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, a text that unveils a vision of Christianity lost to history and the relentless efforts to suppress it. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene was discovered in 1896 by German scholar Karl Reinhardt in a Cairo market. Written in Coptic and dating to the 5th century, this fragmented text is believed to be a translation of an earlier Greek manuscript from the 2nd century. Its contents reveal a Mary Magdalene far removed from the repentant prostitute popularized by Pope Gregory I in the 6th century. Instead, she emerges as a visionary leader, the closest confidant of Jesus, and the recipient of his most profound teachings. In the Gospel, Jesus shares esoteric knowledge with Mary, speaking of the nature of the soul, the path to inner enlightenment, and the illusion of material existence. When Mary recounts these teachings to the other disciples, Peter reacts with indignation, questioning whether Jesus would truly reveal such truths to a woman. Levi intervenes, defending Mary and chastising Peter for his arrogance. This exchange is not merely a personal conflict, but a theological battleground, one that pits hierarchical authority against mystical insight and institutional power against personal revelation. The suppression of the Gospel of Mary was not an isolated event. It was part of a broader systematic effort to standardize Christian doctrine and consolidate power within the early church. During the 4th century, as Christianity transitioned from a persecuted sect to the state religion of the Roman Empire, Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. This council sought to establish unity and orthodoxy, but in doing so, it marginalized and condemned texts that deviated from the emerging narrative. The Gnostic Gospels, including those of Thomas, Philip, and Mary, were deemed heretical for emphasizing direct spiritual experience over ritual and inner knowledge over blind faith. These texts were burned, hidden, or forgotten, and those who preserved them risked persecution. The Gospel of Mary, with its portrayal of a female spiritual authority, posed a particularly potent threat to the patriarchal structure of the institutional church. The implications of the Gospel of Mary are nothing short of revolutionary. Had it been included in the biblical canon, Christianity might have developed along a radically different trajectory. Mary Magdalene could have been recognized as the first apostle, the one whom Jesus entrusted with his deepest wisdom. Women might have held positions of leadership within the early church, and theological concepts such as reincarnation, inner divinity, and the transcendence of gender could have become central tenets of the faith. Instead, the church constructed a narrative that relegated women to the margins and centralized power in the hands of a male clergy. The Gospel of Mary challenges this narrative at its core, suggesting that the foundational claims of apostolic succession and institutional authority are built upon a deliberate omission of truth. Despite its rediscovery over a century ago, the Gospel of Mary remains largely ignored by mainstream religious institutions. The Vatican has never officially acknowledged its authenticity, and scholars who study it often face backlash or marginalization. The original codex is housed in the Berlin Museum, where it is rarely displayed or discussed. This silence is not accidental. It is a reflection of the enduring power of the forces that sought to suppress the text centuries ago. The Gospel of Mary undermines the doctrine of apostolic succession, which asserts that Peter was the first pope and that papal authority derives from an unbroken line of male successors. If Mary Magdalene was indeed the intended leader of Jesus' movement, the entire edifice of papal legitimacy crumbles. Yet the truth has a way of resurfacing, The Gospel of Mary Magdalene is part of a larger tapestry of suppressed texts that have been rediscovered in modern times, including the Nag Hammadi Library, which was unearthed in Egypt in 1945. These texts invite us to reconsider the history of Christianity and to question the narratives we have been taught. They remind us that history is written by the victors, but the voices of the marginalized are never fully silenced. The Gospel of Mary is not an attack on faith. Rather, it is an invitation to explore a richer, more diverse spiritual heritage, one that embraces mystery, values inner experience, and honors the divine in all people, regardless of gender or status. To fully appreciate the significance of the Gospel of Mary, one must also consider the political and cultural context of the early centuries of Christianity. The Roman Empire was a melting pot of religious ideas, with mystery cults, philosophical schools, and spiritual movements competing for followers. In this environment, Christianity had to distinguish itself and present a unified front to gain imperial favor. Texts that emphasized personal enlightenment over collective ritual, or that presented a vision of spirituality accessible without intermediaries, were seen as destabilizing to the project of building a centralized religious authority. The Gospel of Mary, with its focus on inner knowledge and its challenge to gender hierarchies, was particularly threatening. It suggested that divinity was not mediated through priests or sacraments, but could be accessed directly by anyone, regardless of social status or gender. This was a democratization of the sacred that the institutional church could not allow. Moreover, the Gospel of Mary must be understood within the broader tradition of Gnostic Christianity, which flourished in the first few centuries after Jesus' death. Gnosticism, derived from the Greek word gnosis, meaning knowledge, emphasized the importance of spiritual insight and personal experience of the divine. For Gnostics, salvation was not achieved through faith alone, but through a process of awakening to one's true nature and the divine spark within. The Gospel of Mary is a quintessentially Gnostic text, portraying Jesus as a spiritual teacher who imparts wisdom meant to lead his followers to self-realization. This stands in stark contrast to the Orthodox portrayal of Jesus as a sacrificial figure whose death atones for humanity's sins. The tension between these two visions of Christianity, one mystical and interior, the other institutional and exterior, was ultimately resolved by force, with the Gnostic tradition being violently suppressed. The rediscovery of the Gospel of Mary and other Gnostic texts in the modern era has sparked a re-evaluation of early Christian history. Scholars like Karen King of Harvard Divinity School have argued that these texts reveal an early Christianity that was far more diverse and complex than previously imagined. The Gospel of Mary, in particular, challenges the traditional boundaries of the biblical canon and invites us to consider what was lost when the Church decided which texts to include and which to exclude. This process of canonization was not merely a matter of discerning divine inspiration, it was a political act that shaped the future of Christianity for centuries to come. The enduring resistance to the Gospel of Mary within certain circles of the Vatican and conservative theological traditions underscores the continued relevance of its message. In an era when questions of gender equality, spiritual authority, and the role of institutions are increasingly debated, the Gospel of Mary offers an ancient precedent for a more inclusive and personally empowering vision of faith. It reminds us that the struggle between hierarchy and equality, between control and liberation, is not new, but has been a central dynamic in the history of religion. Ultimately, the story of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene is a testament to the enduring power of truth. It is a call to look beyond the surface of institutional narratives and to seek the deeper currents of spiritual wisdom that have flowed through history, often in hidden ways. As we uncover these lost treasures, we reclaim a heritage that is both ancient and urgently relevant. A heritage that challenges us to imagine a faith grounded not in power and control, but in love, knowledge, and liberation. The Vatican's fear of this text is not merely a historical curiosity, It is a reflection of the ongoing tension between the preservation of authority and the pursuit of truth. And in that tension, we find the timeless struggle for the soul of faith itself.